The Giants of Patagonia. Captain Bourne's account of his captivity amongst the extraordinary savages of Patagonia. With 6 fine engravings. To which is added, the painfully interesting narrative of the fate of the Patagonian Society's mission in Terra del Fuego. Listening to the ticking of the watch. London. Ingram, Cooke, and Co. And all booksellers. 1853. The Giants of Patagonia. Page 29. The habits of the Patagonians, or at least of the tribe among whom I was cast, are migratory, wandering over the country in quest of game, or as their caprice may prompt them. They subsist altogether on the flesh of animals and birds. The guanaco furnishes most of their food, and all their clothing. A mantle of skins, sewed with the sinews of the ostrich, fitting closely about the neck and extending below the knee, is their only article of dress, except in the coldest weather, when a kind of shoe, made of the hind hoof and a portion of the skin above it, serves to protect their inferior extremities. In person they are large. On first sight, they appear absolutely gigantic. They are taller than any other race I have seen, though it is impossible to give any accurate description. The only standard of measurement I had was my own height, which is about 5 feet 10 inches. I could stand very easily under the arms of many of them, and all the men were at least a head taller than myself. Their average height, I should think, is nearly 6.5 feet, and there were specimens that could have been little less than 7 feet high. They have broad shoulders, full and well-developed chests, frames muscular and finely proportioned, the whole figure and air making an impression like that which the first view of the sons of Anak is recorded to have made on the children of Israel. They exhibit enormous strength, whenever they are sufficiently aroused to shake off their constitutional laziness and exert it. They have large heads, high cheek bones, like the North American Indians, whom they also resemble in their complexion, though it is a shade or two darker. Their foreheads are broad, but low, the hair covering them nearly to the eyes full, generally black, or of a dark brown, and brilliant, though expressive of but little intelligence. Thick, coarse, and stiff hair protects the head, its abundance making any artificial covering superfluous. It is worn long, generally divided at the neck, so as to hang in 2 folds over the shoulders and back, but is sometimes bound above the temples, by a fillet, over which it flows in ample luxuriance. Like more civilized people, the Patagonians take great pride in the proper disposition and effective display of their hair. Their teeth are really beautiful, sound and white, about the only attractive and enviable feature of their persons. Feet and hands are large, but not disproportionate to their total bulk. They have deep, heavy voices, and speak in guttural tones, the worst guttural I ever heard, with a muttering, indistinct articulation, much as if their mouths were filled with hot pudding. Their countenances are generally stupid, but, on closer inspection, there is a gleam of low cunning that flashes through this dull mask, and is increasingly discernible on acquaintance with them. When excited, or engaged in any earnest business that calls their faculties into full exercise, their features light up with unexpected intelligence and animation. In fact, as one becomes familiar with them, he will not fail to detect an habitual expression of secretiveness and duplicity, which he will wonder he did not observe sooner. They are almost as imitative as monkeys, and are all great liars. Falsehood is universal and inveterate with men, women, and children. The youngest seem to inherit the taint, and vie with the oldest in displaying it. The detection of a falsehood gives them no shame or uneasiness. To these traits should be added a thorough-paced treachery, and, what might seem rather inconsistent with their other qualities, a large share of vanity, and an immoderate love of praise. They are excessively filthy in their personal habits. Hydrophobia, so to speak, is a prevailing distemper. They never wash themselves. Hands and faces are covered with dirt, so thick, and of such ancient deposit, that their natural color only appears in spots, laid bare by the mechanical loosening and displacement of some of the strata, which curiously variegate the surface. It is hardly necessary to remark that such a condition of the skin is highly favorable to the increase and multiplication of the moving creature that hath life, wherewith their persons are abundantly peopled. The women are proportionally smaller than the men, and rather inclined to embonpoint. The old chief had 4 wives, though he had probably never heard of Muhammad or his domestic laws. The rest of the tribe had only 1 wife apiece. The women erect the wigwams, provide fuel, and cook, if the operation should be dignified with that name. In short, all the drudgery falls to their lot. They are treated as slaves, but made, in most respects, as comfortable in their servitude as the condition of their rude masters will admit. When, however, their lords are excited by gambling, or enraged for any or no cause, the fury of passion is visited upon their defenseless heads, which they bear uncomplainingly, with a meek submissiveness worthy of better treatment. They are passionately fond of trinkets and clumsy ornaments, such as bits of brass and copper, beads, and the like, which they wear suspended from their necks. A few of them had their ears pierced, and wore brass or copper ear rings, and many of them decked out their children with similar rude finery, which is valued more than anything else, except rum, tobacco, and bread. The men paint or bedaub their faces and breasts with a kind of red earth. Charcoal is also used as a cosmetic. A broad line of red alternating with a stripe of black, in various fantastic figures, is a favorite style of decoration. The women make themselves, if possible, still more hideous, by the application of a pigment made of clay, blood, and grease. Some of them would be very comely, if only cleanly, and content to leave nature less strenuously adorned. The people are as deficient in the morals as in the refinements and courtesies of domestic life. Their licentiousness is equal to their cruelty. The filth of their persons only too faithfully represents the degree in which their mind and conscience is defiled. I saw no person, of either sex, that appeared to have attained advanced age, though it was difficult to judge of this. The oldest Indian I remember to have seen did not seem to be above 60. Their only wealth, aside from their huts, consists of horses, the stock of which is frequently replenished by stealing from the Spanish and Chilean settlements. These animals are, for the most part, of small size and inferior quality, half wild, coated with coarse, shaggy hair, lean and woebegone enough, just fit for the crows. A few valuable specimens of a superior breed are found among them, doubtless, conveyed there. The rude saddles in use among them are mostly of Spanish origin, obtained at the settlements. They consist each of 2 boards, an inch thick, 6 inches wide, and 2 feet long, rounded at the corners so as to fit the horse's back, and united by 2 strips of board passing across the backbone, the several pieces lashed together with leather strings. A piece of guanaco skin often serves in default of a saddle. The steed is guided by a single rein, tied round the lower jaw. Some of them sport a bit of iron or wood, secured by a string round the jaw, attaching the rein to this. Spurs, like the rest of their riding apparatus, are more efficient than elegant. They are, indeed, rude and cruel things, straight sticks, 6 inches long, with a long, sharp iron inserted into the end, secured by a string or strap around the hollow of the foot, and tied at the top, a second strap nearer the heel, and a third passing round the heel. They are all agile and excellent horsemen. For weapons, the chief, and a few of the principal men, had cutlasses or swords. They had no firearms, nor could I learn that they understood their use. Bows and arrows, spears and war clubs, appeared to be equally unknown. All the men carried knives, and the bolas, a missile weapon used in the capture of all kinds of game. This consists of 2 round stones, or lead balls, if they can be procured, weighing each about a pound, connected by a strap or thong of leather, 10 or 12 feet long. When engaged in the chase, his horse at his highest speed, the rider holds one ball in his hand, and whirls the other rapidly above his head. When it has acquired a sufficient momentum, it is hurled with unerring aim at the object of pursuit, and either strikes the victim dead, or coils inextricably about him and roots him to the spot, a helpless mark for the hunter's knife. The tribe numbered about 1,000. The chief is the acknowledged head of the people. Whether his power was hereditary or elective, I could not learn, but inclined to the belief that it was hereditary, as it appeared to be, in his theory at least, absolute. In all questions of importance his decision is final, yet his subjects take considerable liberty with his opinions, sometimes oppose his counsels, and even question his authority. On the appearance of such democratic symptoms, he sometimes finds it necessary to assert his sovereignty with spirit, and brandishes his cutlass smartly before their eyes. The habits of the people are not only filthy, but indolent to the last degree. Exertion of body or mind is their greatest dread. They never go on a hunting expedition till there is nothing more to eat, nor even then till they feel the spur of extreme hunger. It sometimes happens that at such a crisis a storm comes on, which shuts them in, and it is no unfrequent occurrence for them, under such circumstances, to pass 2 or 3 days without tasting food. They learn nothing by experience. The same childish indolence and recklessness, followed by the same painful consequences, are continually recurring. Though their great size at first sight was fitted to inspire terror, it required no very long observation to discover that they were deficient in natural courage. In fact, might be inferred at once, from their habitual deceit, treachery, and artifice, which are the defenses of the weak and timorous, rather than the weapons of strong and daring natures. They always select night to inflict injuries, never meet an enemy in open combat whom they can stab from behind, or dispatch in the dark, and, when obliged to attack by day, always do so in large numbers. This defect of courage is increased by their superstition. They have great faith in charms, signs, and omens, a weakness which I anticipated might exert great influence on my destiny in important conjunctures. Could I by any means so master their secret as to possess myself of its mystic power, it might prove an effective aid to my plans of self-defense, or of escape. Should it, on the other hand, be turned by any accidental causes against me, its impulse might prove irresistible by power or contrivance. There was no appearance of idolatrous worship among them, nor could I observe any allusion to a supreme being, or to any superior powers having personal attributes, and, except a single ceremony, of which more hereafter, the nature of which was and is still inexplicable, there was nothing that suggested to my mind the idea of religious worship. Whether they are cannibals or not, has been a matter of some dispute. So far as I know, they have been, heretofore, only casually observed on the beach by voyagers, or vaguely reported by the people of adjoining countries and neighboring settlements, neither of which is a sufficiently reliable source of information. My own personal advantages on this head were greater, but I am obliged, after all, to leave the question about where I found it, so far as certain conclusions are concerned. Yet some circumstances occurred, or were related to me, that incline my mind strongly to the belief that such horrible practices are not unjustly ascribed to them. Of the soundness of my conclusions those who follow the course of the narrative will have the opportunity of judging for themselves. If such had been my persuasion at the beginning, it may be readily imagined what effect this last hazard would have had upon my feelings, in contemplating the possibilities of the future. Happily a convenient skepticism on this point preserved me from this dark apprehension. I came among these people not, certainly, with the best preparation in my previous habits and associations to endure either the climate of the country or the hardships of captivity. I went on shore in my usual ship's dress, thick frock coat, trousers, and shoes, and glazed cap. My undergarments were woolen, though an important item, as before related, was made away with in fruitlessly signaling vessels in the straits. But to live without any change of dress, to sleep without any additional covering, protected from the cold ground only by a fragment of guanaco hide, and the other discomforts and exposures of life among savages, made, altogether, a harsh contrast to the comforts of our good schooner. To these, however, I gradually became inured, till I was able to meet cold and wet and storm with as stoical indifference as my dark companions, who had known no other lot from infancy. Of the character of the natives I had little previous knowledge, and that little was not adapted to stimulate curiosity, or prompt the least anxiety for more intimate acquaintance. It was derived mainly from whalers, in whom it seemed to have produced much the same degree of contentment, a feeling that ignorance is bliss. Indeed, the greatest caution has always been employed by voyagers in regard to landing on these shores. Many experienced seamen cannot be persuaded to land at all. Trade with the natives is always carried on in boats offshore, frequently with loaded firearms constantly leveled, in readiness for action in case of emergency. But here I was, put forcibly to the study of their character in the school of Dame Experience, and can testify to the truth of the saying that she charges roundly for tuition. Let the reader give me credit for the cheapness with which I put him in possession of what knowledge was purchased at so exorbitant a price. The giants of Patagonia.